A fox knows many things, but a hedgehog knows one important thing. It's one important thing. It's one important thing.
Welcome to the Morning Hedgehog podcast, where we explore the business ideas that shape your success. Here are your hosts, Ira Gardner and Glennis Thomas. We now join Glennis and Ira in progress.
So now we've looked at your website, and that's a great way to segue into developing our web strategy, our online business platform. And it's certainly appropriate now. Right now, brick and mortar storefronts are largely still in the shutdown mode. So really, our first engagement with most of our new business is probably going to be online. They're going to do some research on us. They might get a word of mouth referral that then drives them to our website. So we really need to develop the online portion of our business model to support who we are and how we do our business. And so our online strategy needs to look at things such as what kinds of images or video clips are we storing, how large are those files, what's the capacity for that. We need to be able to have a blogging feature. Blogging is not dead. It's actually, I think, the most important marketing for search engine optimization we can do because search engines are looking based upon keywords and tags and that sort of thing. And it's also the place where we get to express authentic personality within a portion of the internet that we actually have control over. I think social media is important, but your website and your blog is the place that you have 100% control over. You've carved it out on the internet and you set the terms for that. And then we need social media as our evergreen content, meaning that when I think about content on a website, a web page is going to contain product information and service information and portfolios that don't change very often. I might update them every 6 months to a year. This is going to be the key components of our business offerings are going to generally be on landing pages, web pages that don't change very often. A blog, on the other hand, a blog post is going to be updated. Probably a good goal would be once per week, a good blog post once a week. Social media is something we do on a daily basis. And so what we want is to make sure that we have content on our website that is always changing to give people a reason to come back to our site, to look forward to coming to our site, because we know that repeat customers are an important part of our business. And then we need a ability to have a contact form that allows people to connect with us directly on our website without going out to their email application. I need something simple that's right there. They just fill it in, hit submit, and then it comes to me and I can respond to that inquiry. I also need the ability to have other types of forms that allow me to gather information and exchange it for freemium content. And this is the ability to create e-publications or PDF booklets that really establish our expertise, and we give something, it's called permission marketing, where in exchange for you giving me your contact info, I'm going to give you something right here and now that is going to help you. So we've talked about it before, but maybe you would come up with a PDF document on the 10 things to do for your headshots to win more customers. You might talk about wardrobe. You might talk about hairstyle. You might talk about expression, whatever those things are. To put that in, maybe it's 10 things to know before you pick a wedding photographer. And things like, do they have experience photographing at the venue I've selected? How do they work with other vendors in their community? Do they use cameras that have built-in redundant backup so that this is a one-time thing? And are they using consumer level cameras with just one SD or a CF card? We can put that expertise together in a PDF document that can be immediately downloaded in exchange for permission to get their contact info and contact them in the future and on a regular basis with email, newsletters, etc. We also need the ability to sell things off of our website, even if it's getting a prepayment on a photo session. Being able to collect money on a website may be really important to us. I also need to deal with the back office side of things, the business management side. How am I handling order fulfillment? How am I handling the accounting? How am I handling contract signatures? More and more people are expecting to sign documents electronically, and do I have a system in place for that? How am I showing my clients their work? What kind of client galleries do I have? Are they secure and private? Are they designed for me to easily download because maybe I'm doing commercial photography and I'm never going to purchase prints and I don't need a bunch of retail products. I need ease of downloading and accessing that gallery. On the other hand, if I'm selling prints, I might need a client gallery that has an integrated photo finishing lab so that my clients can order prints and my lab will make them and send them directly to the customer. And I'm just collecting the commission on the sales. So client galleries, there's no one solution to meet every need. We need to think about what is our primary business. I need an email address. This is how people get a hold of me via email, and it's what's going to go on to all my correspondence. And I need the ability to batch large numbers of emails to communicate special newsletters, special sales, whatever I might need. I need a bulk email strategy, if you will. So I've identified 8 features that we need to look for when choosing a website platform. And the first one is storage capacity and the file types allowed. Am I using my website as one of my archive methods for offsite storage? If so, do I need to be able to store raw files, and how much is that going to cost me extra compared to storing JPEGs or PNG files that are small web format? Is my storage capacity is also affected by the amount of traffic. How many people am I allowed to have on my site per month downloading content, and how is that affecting my bandwidth and overall traffic? So storage capacity and bandwidth becomes very integrated together. I need to know what my e-commerce options are and what's the breakdown of fees and commissions. I know I've talked about this before. If I'm using a retail portrait content management system like Zenfolio, they're charging, I believe, an 8% commission on every order, whether it's an automated order fulfilled by my lab or a custom order fulfilled by me, as opposed to on my WordPress site where I'm using a WooCommerce e-commerce platform where I don't pay any fees or commissions. I only pay the credit card merchant transaction fee through my payment gateway. So e-commerce is something I need to look at. PrintLab integration. What's the user experience for proofing or for delivering the orders to my customers? I need to pay attention to that. Do they have a cell phone app? Like, for example, ShootProof has the ability for me to have clients download an app so that they don't have to go find their gallery. It's just on their phone. It has all the e-commerce and order fulfillment built into an app. And then, is there integrated email marketing options? Am I able to build my email list directly off of my website? And then, if I'm using Lightroom or if you're using Capture One, is there a plugin that allows me to post content directly from my digital workflow to my website? And can I manage my client galleries inside of my file browser that I'm already using, whether it's Lightroom, Capture One, or any other product you might use? These are things to think about. And then an often overlooked one is we are in this race to get the most value for the least amount of money. And since there's so much automation, people tend to look for the cheapest web hosting service. And yet I will tell you that customer service is incredibly important. Who's doing the backup? Who's going to install the site if it goes down due to a server breakdown? Who's going to help me problem solve if I make a change to my website and it doesn't go right? So having access to customer service, is it strictly through an FAQ form of, gee, if the question's been asked before, I get help. If I have something that hasn't been asked, I'm out of luck. I need to pay attention to customer service. And then how is the domain handled? Is it my name added to a domain of my content management provider? Am I able to do a custom domain that is strictly mine? Am I doing a domain that is custom to where there's no other external advertising? Believe it or not, there's a lot of free platforms out there, but you're stuck with other people's advertising, which is muddying the message, if you will. So these eight categories of features are what I think we all need to pay attention to. Now, I have some good news for you. I've done most of the research for you. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, I had some other things that when I talk to my students about this, one of them is, the ease of use. You have to decide, are you willing? There's a balance. Some of the programs out there are super easy to use, drag and drop, but they lack a certain amount of customization, and other ones have a lot of customization, but there's a steeper learning curve. So you have to balance in terms of, what you're willing to work with in there. Also, different platforms out there have different search engine optimization capabilities. I mean, WordPress has some outstanding, great plugins as well as what they do. But if you're looking at GoDaddy or Wix.com or Squarespace, how easy or how difficult is it, or how well do they integrate search engine optimization capabilities within that? Another big thing is reformatting for mobile use. So easily 50% or more of your customers are going to be looking at your website, at least initially, from their phone. So I use Wix, and Wix allows me to proof it as a desktop and proof it from what a mobile view is going to be. And then because ultimately I'm going to have to make changes. How I format it for desktop, I'm going to have to make some tweaks on it for mobile. And you were talking about the customer service. So part of that mobile is the ability to have a click on the mobile site that immediately then calls out. So they don't have to write down your phone number and then go over to their phone app and then do that. That's very difficult for people who are in their car or walking around. They don't want to do that. Another thing to look at is responsive loading. So WordPress is going to be excellent in that area. Wix.com actually had, I forget it, but it was a marketing, online marketing program. And he had some fancy tool that he paid for that that searches your website and comes up with about 100 different points of what to look at. And we were surprised to find that there was a bit of a lag on Wix, because I didn't know this, but the servers are actually in another country. So it's pinging out and then it's got to come back. Now, Wix has done a lot to reduce that amount, but that is going to be one small point in terms of my rankings in terms of search engine optimization. So, and there's still a lot that you can do yourself to bring the file sizes of your images down so that it loads really fast. But those were some other things to keep in mind as you are trying to figure out what platform to use. But I'm assuming if you said you've done your research, then you've got probably a great spreadsheet or something.
I do, but I want to go back. So, hey, this is great. We've just expanded from 8 to 12 categories.
Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. But it's funny because I actually have these in my criteria for evaluating some of the products and services. My 8 were really kind of categories of services.
Okay.
And then your additional 4 elements to me started to get at criteria for comparing apples and apples to pick the best one, so to speak. But regardless, I think it's worth putting here and adding it right here. And I want to go back to number 9 on there about ease of use, because that's actually something that I bring up a lot. And that is this: it doesn't matter if you choose the tool that has all these features if the interface is such that you don't want to use it, because you want to find a platform. Basically, as you're going to see here very quickly, is you're developing a system to support a custom business model. And I will just show you very quickly. Yes, I have done a ton of research. We'll come back here. I've put together this spreadsheet that looks at all the major features and platforms for doing this. And what you will notice is that there is no one product or no one platform that checks every box. Okay, it's not going to happen. And there's some products that work really well within their specific area, but if the interface or the system, the processes you have to go through are not in alignment with how your brain is wired to think, you're not going to succeed with that particular product. And I'll give you an example of it. I absolutely love Sprout Studio for its functionality. It has amazing things, like I can have up to, I think it's 5 different logos for 5 different brands. And I'm a serial entrepreneur and I've got multiple businesses. So that was a key category that at one point caused me to pick Sprout Studio. It had client galleries with augmented virtual reality. That means that I could drag client photos, or my clients can drag their own photos onto a photo of their room to see what the artwork would look like at different sizes, kind of like a Pro Select version of sales presentation. Love that. Check the big box on me. It had electronic contracts that I could put proposals together, custom proposals, and send it to a client, very polished, very professional, and the client could sign it and approve it and make their first payment. It had payment plans and payment options that were all automated. Loved all these key features. When it came to using the product, it was designed by and for wedding photographers. Weddings are not my primary business. The entire workflow, every time I wanted to do something simple, I would go into that program, and I just don't think like a retail wedding photographer anymore. Those days are over. I'm more of a custom boutique business model, and my way of thinking was not in alignment with their workflow of processes of how to use their interface. For that reason alone, after a year and a half of using it, I abandoned it. Because even though it's this great product, and I still would highly recommend it for any wedding photographer out there, it's a great product, didn't work for me, because no matter how good the product is, if it doesn't feel right, if you're not going to use it. If you don't like the interface, you're not going to use it. So that's where you got to bring a lot of time and effort into looking at the interface to figure out what works for you. Now, I've got this here to just kind of show us what some of the key ideas, what we're looking for is a content management system. What I mean by that is we are simply providing content, and the display, all the programming is handled automatically by whatever system we've selected. And that's different than doing a custom website. And believe me, I have experience in grad school computer programming classes on doing web development from the ground up. I once designed a video game for a website during the World Cup that allowed the users to play soccer on the website. Just a fun little game. So I have done all these things. I don't want to do them again because I'll tell you that most photographers are not going to be able to afford what a custom website would cost. A custom website easily run 10 to 40 grand. Some large websites for companies are six-figure, over 100 grand to custom tailor a website. And I've known photographers that have done trade out with web designers, and that's a great strategy. But then what happens is they want to go modify that website, and that designer has moved out of town, or the relationship's soured, or whatever. Now all of a sudden you're stuck with this custom modification fee that is extremely expensive. I don't recommend that. What I recommend is that we find the content management system that meets our needs without a whole lot of overly custom parts to it. If you and I've got kind of this spectrum here. I would say, for example, Squarespace is extremely simple to create a beautiful website, but fairly limited in feature set. WordPress is kind of the other extreme, where it is the interface requires a lot more customization, and it's kind of like working on your own car a little bit to build the website, but it'll do anything you want. So you can go very custom without those expensive custom programming fees. And it's a platform that you can hire a graphic designer or web designer to work with, because increasingly they're using a third of websites on the internet or WordPress sites. So getting back to this ease of use content management system ideas, we've got basically two sides of a coin. I either pick a system that I like the interface so much that I am willing to modify my business model to align with the workflow processes of that content management system, or I need to choose a system that allows me to modify the content management system and customize it like a WordPress to align with my business model. So there's always this ebb and pull of, am I modifying how I do things to match the system I've selected, or am I picking a system that allows me to custom modify it to do it the way I want to do it? And it's really somewhere in between. And so for me, for example, right now I'm doing a rebrand and creating a new website that's a WordPress site, because I found a system that works for me that thinks the way I do. And so I'll share that with you a little bit more.
Can I interject here, which is, I wanted to add here that you can hire somebody to create your website on any of these platforms. But, and back to your point before, this is what I recommend to my students. You're going to make a lot more modifications to your website than you're going to realize. And that you don't want, and a lot of times if you go to somebody who's designed it, they're going to charge you on the hourly basis or on a half an hour basis. And so if you just have one change that's really important, but you got to pay them the whole hour, that doesn't necessarily make sense. So I totally agree. You got to find a platform that works for you. If you're willing, create it yourself and do it and really learn how to do it, because you're just going to love having that control and make those changes. But you can also hire someone, you can find the platform that you're willing to work in, hire someone to create that initial website, and then have them train you how to make those changes. And then if you have a big design change, you can go back to them or somebody else to recreate that. But if you're just making a pricing change, you want to just change up your packages, those should be small enough changes that you can make on your on your own.
Fantastic information. And what I want to do is I just want to go through, I've got all these logos of what I think are the primary content management systems geared towards photographers out there. And I've actually included one that it's geared towards photography, but it's actually not a website content management system. It's really just the client gallery, and that's ShootProof. ShootProof is really a combination of client galleries and back office functionality. You can do your contracts, you can do payments, you can do order fulfillment, but it's not going to be the whole website. So really ShootProof is a plug-in, so to speak. In my world, I think of it as a feature set that needs to be added to the website. But I have it on here because ShootProof and Zenfolio are probably the two dominant players and when it comes to retail portraiture. And what I mean by retail is not just the photography of the portraits, whether it be families, children, boudoir, any weddings, all that stuff. It's also the order fulfillment part of customers being able to order images from their gallery and have it automatically fulfilled by a high quality, and I emphasize the high quality, photo finishing lab. So for example, I have a Zenfolio site. I'm still using it to fulfill my retail portrait jobs, and it's integrated with Miller's. I use the Miller's Professional Lab. Whereas SmugMug is another common site for retail portrait order fulfillment, but it seems to me to be a little bit more geared towards high volume, lower price options out there. And it's more, this is where a lot of, I hate the term MomTog because I have a lot of respect for the home-based business that is geared towards family and children, that sort of thing. But I'm using that term loosely to describe that sort of not fully committed professional that just wants ease of use and a lot of just give it to my customers very affordably. And then I also have known photojournalists. I have a dear friend of mine who is now a retired photojournalist who started a SmugMug account as a way to simply handle the extra orders and a way to give people that he would do these events that he'd cover for news. People wanted the images. Well, he threw them up at SmugMug and they could download and make prints very inexpensively. That was adjacent to his primary business being the photojournalism. So when it comes to retail portrait, these are kind of the big players. When it comes to commercial photography, PhotoShelter is really strong because it has all the usage fee calculators, not all of them, but it has a usage fee calculation built in that if I needed to create a stock gallery where I want to put up work that could be downloaded for stock photography, PhotoShelter will actually calculate the value of that stock photo by the way it's going to be used. Or I could use a combination of Squarespace with another platform called PhotoBiz, which is a back office geared for high-end commercial photography. And then if I'm doing fine art and I really just want to be fine art, Art Storefronts, it's a fairly expensive platform, but it's probably the best platform for fine art sales out there. And then there's these two that I put side by side, which are WordPress and Wix. And I think they have a lot in common. I was curious about Wix. I moved away from Wix a long time ago because of the platform, the server speed. That issue of where the servers are located was an issue. And then early on, the way they made Wix so drag and drop simple to use, both Wix and Squarespace are really simple, easy to get started, easy to make beautiful websites. My students love, that's usually their first place to go. And then about a year later or 2 years later, they end up starting over again and figuring out what they really need. But Wix, part of what made it easy drag and drop was it was a Flash-based site originally, and Flash was a security hazard. It's not Flash anymore. I think it's all HTML5 now, but that was one way. I just never went back to it. More recently, I've had some students that are working with Wix, and there's a lot of plugins, a lot of added features similar to WordPress, but I've yet to really fully be convinced that I would run a full e-commerce site through Wix as compared to the WordPress. So I think
I think WordPress would make more sense when you're selling prints online and you want to integrate all that stuff. Wix does have a really easy to use search engine optimization wizard that just takes you right through it. I haven't been on WordPress for a while. I used to keep some personal blogs on WordPress, and I wasn't interested in the search engine optimization, but for those who are beginners on it, the Wix does a really nice job of that. And well, I ranked really fast in my local area with Wix.
Yeah, like I said, Wix has gotten a lot better. I actually would put Wix and Squarespace in this category of if you are a business that really primarily needs your website to be a portfolio site and information only, meaning there's no need for e-commerce. There's no need for client galleries. There's no need for most of your interaction is going to be face-to-face, or it's going to be through a direct word of mouth. Wix and Squarespace are really great, what I consider billboard websites. Really good branding, really great billboard.
And designed to get someone to call you or
Yes.
or schedule a meeting.
Yes, absolutely. They're great brochure websites, if you will, that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if your web strategy in your analysis of your business model, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment, if you need a little bit more back office ability to manage the sales funnel and the whole sales process, then some of these other platforms out here become important. And then I included 2 Adobe products, which are there because they are virtually free, in that you could create a billboard brochure portfolio website using a free included with your subscription for the Creative Cloud through Adobe Portfolio. And Adobe Portfolio works in hand with Behance, which is practically a social media site geared for art directors, graphic designers, and commercial photographers. It is a way for people to get discovered that want to work in high-end advertising media. And so I included in here because I believe even if I have a WordPress site, if I were really wanting to be a player in the ad agency world, I would also make sure I had an Adobe Portfolio and Behance site. All right, so though these are the primary content management systems that are the public facing side of your online strategy. This is the place where your customers will interact with you. Behind the scenes, we get to the back office, and that really involves more the accounting side of things, as well as the workflow of keeping track of orders and what needs to happen first, second, third, etc. And I probably should include in here, let me just fix this omission right now. There we go. So ProSelect is definitely one of those products. I did some training on it. It's an amazing product, but man, does it require you to master a system. And if you're not fully committed to that system, my brain just doesn't work that way. And so it's an incredibly powerful tool. Great for a lot of photographers, has helped sell many wall portraits. Just wasn't the right fit for me. So I've kind of listed some of the big names in here: 17 Hats, Studio Ninja, QuickBooks, Successware. They're not in any particular order. I actually used to have my own software that I would have put in this category, but I don't want to do software programming anymore. That part of my life is over. So I think the difference is if you have the knowledge and expertise of a traditional accounting system, QuickBooks is probably the #1 tool for setting up a traditional chart of accounts and really doing the kind of deep dive analytics through financial reporting. And we'll have a whole episode about accounting and financial reports and the role it has in making management decisions. Really helpful. But some of these, like Honeybook and Sprout Studio, are really geared towards wedding photography. Tave has nice workflow in there. So these are just some of the products out there that you should take a look at.
Tave or Shootproof, I think, bought Tave, or the other way around.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that's how
merged.
they've been able to add some of those functions into Shootproof. Yeah.
And Shootproof, somebody big owns them. So I think they have a lot of resources behind them. I think we'll see some more changes to that platform.
Well, and there's Shootproof has one thing that I think is really powerful to it, and that is the ability to have that web app that is custom branded. Zenfolio has a cell phone app called Photo Memories, but it doesn't allow you to brand. You can put your logo in it, but it's still the name of the app is Photo Memories, and it's not very. Just doesn't work as good as it should, in my opinion. Shootproof has a app that you can send to your customers that is completely branded by you, works really well. And so I'm For me, I'm always looking for ways that I can engage customers and word of mouth referral outside of social media so that they're not easily distracted. Because what you see with social media is the average engagement time, length of time people look at information about you is so brief because the next post, the next post, the next post. So anything I can do to drive traffic from social media to my platform that I have a monopoly on, and if I can hold that engagement, that's a win in my book. So I'm looking for strategies to do that. Another tool out there that has been around for a long time is Sticky Albums, is another smartphone tool that people use. I haven't heard much about it in a while now, but I like the idea of it very much. And I'm actually exploring with WordPress. There's now apps out there to convert your whole WordPress site into a smartphone app. And that's probably going to be the next step in my progression.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a living document. If you see something that is inaccurate, and this means anybody in our audience, just email me and I'll update it. So I remember the first time I presented this on a national platform, I got some email that I was off by a little bit on a pricing model. Prices had changed, so I went in and changed it. So that's great. So basically what I've done is I put a link to all the major platforms where you can go directly to them. But I just kind of broke it down as, how much is a domain going to be? It's going to be somewhere between $8 to $20 a year. Website hosting is going to range, with e-commerce features, you're going to in that $200 to $500 a year, so to speak. With Zenfolio, I'm paying a little over $300 a year for the level I would need to provide a full retail experience. One thing to look for is secure socket layer certificates. This is what helps people feel safe coming to your site, because a lot of browsers, if you go to a site that is a HTTP, not the HTTPS, the browser will actually pop up a window saying this site not secure, go back. And so you want to know whether or not you're have an SSL certificate. So with Zenfolio, all their sites are underneath their domain and their server. They have an SSL certificate that applies to all of them. Whereas on my WordPress sites, I actually have to buy that SSL certificate as an add-on. And I actually bought it as part of the whole security package. So looking all these in here, and you can spend a lot of time on this, but really this is the real value for you. And that is, I've broken down all the feature categories and put a checkbox with the product that analyzes what features in there. And I might have to go and update the Shootproof one, but I was impressed with Shootproof. It really does have some accounting features. It has workflows. It has contracts. It really is a nice back office option there. And I included some that I'm not familiar with. Pixieset, I know some people are using that. And then I've included some album design softwares like Fundy and Smart Album, because those actually get incorporated into in-person sales presentations for wall portraits and albums and book design as well. Kind of in this category with ProSelect in there as well. And again, I know Shootproof is integrated with one of these products. I forget which one it is. I think it might be Fundy.
I use Shootproof, but I just use it for presenting proofing galleries. I was using it to deliver final images, but I've gone over to Dropbox now. But I use it for proofing galleries, and I use it for the online contracts. The only thing, and I've been looking at the online contracts, in order for that to work where they can actually physically sign it, the email has to be sent through their platform.
Yes.
I'd prefer to send it through my email so that they're getting that consistent, everything comes from me, and just send them a link, but that doesn't exist. Now, I've been looking at Pixieset, because what Pixieset doesn't have the online contracts, but they allow you to write comments on each image. So if I send someone a proofing gallery, then the client can then say, I like this one, but I like the face on this other one. Can you merge these two, or can you remove the exit sign? That's a feature I've been asking Shootproof forever for. So it really is as you go through this, a give and take, and nothing, like you said before, is going to give you everything. So you're going to have to figure out what your set is.
Right.
Like,
for example, Fundy has a really nice feature for doing the wall portrait, sort of that pro select sort of thing that you can do as well as the album design. However, I happen to, the way my brain works, Smart Album just fits me really, really well. I'm super fast with it, and it allows me to, you know, quickly put these books together, like I'm doing these actor portfolios, and they're just a really nice presentation.
right.
Well, what's interesting about Smart Albums is that it advertises being compatible with all these different album and book manufacturers, and Blurb and Miller's, and I really love Graphy Studio. They're just custom made, beautiful books, incredibly expensive, right?
Right.
So I'm a luxury brand. I'm going for luxury. Well, what's interesting is Fundy is a little more accurate in its designs for Graphy Studio than Smart Album. I just don't like the interface as well. And so, for example, with Smart Album, if I'm doing an album design or a book design there, little things that trip you up. I had a book project for a dance company I did, really beautiful book through Miller's Lab. And the first batch I got all had this weird moire pattern. Well, it turns out the file resolution coming out of Smart Albums was at 300 pixels per inch. And this press product that Miller's was printing at was at 250 pixels per inch. So I was oversampled for that particular product line. And because of the fabric that the dancers were using, it was already easily susceptible to a moire pattern. Just that little bit of oversampling created that. So I had to redo that book. But now I've had to add a step and build a action to convert all my image files to 250 pixels per inch. So again, I'm having to build a system that's in with Smart Album, outside of Smart Album. There's no one perfect system, and you just have to find your system that works for you. Now,
and what your needs are too, because you were talking about how those albums are a part of what you do. I've used Swift galleries before. I don't know if they get into the albums, but they're lovely to work with for wall galleries. But it depends on what products you're offering, as well as what works with your brain.
So now and so this is about figuring out what is my business model and how does it relate to my online strategy. So I have actually put together some different business models that have different feature sets necessary depending on what your primary line of business is. And so if you're a retail portrait and event photography, you're doing weddings, you're doing families, all these things, guess what? You need every feature set out there because you are handling full retail, okay? It is the most demanding website model out there. Whereas if you're a commercial advertising photographer or videographer doing commercial videos, you need about the least amount of feature sets because you're really project-based work, working with an art director, working with an agency. Generally, you're working with somebody in between. Somebody's getting you that job, so to speak. And so you need more of the back office contract management. PhotoBiz is another one of the products out there that's really geared towards commercial product photographers and advertising photographers. It's outstanding platform. I'll add that to my list of logos up there. Great product out there. But you're not going to need e-commerce. You're not going to need an integrated lab. Everything you do is going to be custom. Yes, I might do a commercial ad that the client comes back and says, I want to decorate the front sales room with large metal prints of these images you made, Ira. Great. I'm going to work with the lab. I might, Bay Photo or whatever. I'll custom order those and deliver those. I'm not having an e-commerce transaction involved with that. Same with video. It doesn't need nearly as many features and services. I might be a little more interested in storage because of video clips taking more space, but it doesn't need as much. What's interesting about fine art, there's really a split. There's a division of two strategies with fine art. One is the traditional gallery method, where in fact the galleries don't want me selling directly to consumers because they want to make sure they're managing the sales and the inventory to make sure they're getting their cut. Whereas a fine art direct sales model would be maybe going to art fairs, juried art shows, and also just having my own studio to sell my work through. That is going to need the same level of service as the retail portrait studio. So really, retail needs all these features. Business to business and business with an intermediary to business is a far less number of feature sets necessary. So what I've done here is I've created a tool that you can just copy and paste this into your own Google Doc or Word, and you've got the spreadsheet. And now you can go back up here and you can start doing your research. Okay, which has this feature here? What are the choices? I'm going to look at it and find the interface that I think I would actually like. I might even start a trial, and then I'm going to fill in the blank of which product did I actually choose.
This is amazing. This is gold. I mean, the amount of research that photographers go through to figure this out. I mean, it's insane. I mean, this is where analysis paralysis was born. And this is going to help a lot of people reduce the amount of research that they have to do.
That's my goal. So we will include in the show notes a link to this document that you will have access to.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Hedgehog podcast. For show notes or to submit a question or comment, please visit www.themorninghedgehog.com.